What's going on guys, Cesar here. Welcome to a brand new video. Today I'm talking about the top 10 worst people in history. So yeah, history is full of figures that shaped the world, but not always for the better. As a matter of fact, the always part was for the worst. That was the regular thing. I mean, yeah, history is full of evil and cruelty and brutality, especially in the Middle Ages, In the medieval ages, you would think that, because of the amazing castles they had, that life was kind of good, at least for the rich people, but no. This period was so full of injustice, so full of cruelty, so full of mad kings and political people who had high positions to, cause a lot of harm to a huge portion of people. So yeah, today we're counting down the top 10 worst people to ever exist. So yeah, let's get right to it. Number 10. Kim Il-sung. He was the founder of North Korea. He founded the country in 1948 with the help of the Soviet Union. And even though he died in 1994, until this very day North Korea suffers because of his actions. He basically established a totalitarian state, and to maintain his grip on power, he actually carried out a lot of political purges. He executed and imprisoned anyone he saw a threat, including his own comrades. So countless of people were sent to labor camps and were tortured or killed just for perceived disloyalty. It was only perceived disloyalty, it wasn't even insured, but he didn't care about insurance. And yeah, he just created a personality cult where he was the great leader of them. They should only be extreme loyal to him, So yeah, he basically promoted extreme nationalism and, centralized control. And basically Kim Il-sung is largely the reason of North Korea why it is the way it is today. He's the one that established that political and economic and, social system that is living by until this very day. Right now, North Korea is one of the worst places to ever live in. It's because of its totalitarian government and severe human rights abuses. And this guy right there, he's the one that started everything. He started it all. So yeah, he's basically the one to blame why North Korea is the way it is. He also began the Korean War in 1950, which resulted into the death of 2.5 to 3 million people. So yeah, definitely deserves a spot in the top 10 worst people of all time. Number 9. Vlad the Impaler. He was the ruler of Wallachia in the 15th century, which happens to be Romania now. Anyways, this man was extremely cruel. He loved using impalement as punishment to anything basically. If you don't know what impalement is, it's basically one of the worst types of execution in history, in which a person is forced into a sharpened stake and left to die. And in my opinion, this is the second most brutal execution method in history. The first one would be the brazen bull. The number of people impaled by Vlad the Impaler is unknown, but it is estimated to be tens of thousands. The crazy thing is some historians actually argue that his brutality was necessary so that he would maintain order and stuff like that, but that obviously does not justify his actions. Like, his actions were undeniably cruel. He impaled the Ottoman soldiers and some nobles and merchants and criminals and traitors and regular civilians, and a lot of his impalement victims were actually innocent and did not deserve to die, let alone die this crucial and horrible death. And he didn't only impale men, but he also impaled women and children and elder people who could also be innocent. So basically any villager, you could be a villager living at that time and he accuses you that you are collaborating with the Ottomans by some way, and you get impaled regardless of your age or gender. So yeah, definitely one of the worst people in history. An interesting fact about him is that he's the one that inspired the character Dracula. Number 8. Caligula. He was a Roman emperor and he was known for his extreme cruelty and brutality and unpredictable behavior. He tortured and executed a lot of his enemies. Some of these enemies were real, others were imagined. He also really enjoyed public executions. He also was accused of sexual abuse, including incest with his own sisters. Number 7. King Leopold II. He was the king of Belgium from 1865 to 1909. What's so infamous about him is how brutally he ruled over the Congo Free State that he established in 1885. He exploited Congo of its natural resources. He used forced labor and extreme violence to achieve his goals. He also did a lot of mutilations, amputations, and mass killings. He actually chopped off so many hands of the Congo Free State, so yeah, he was horrible, to say the least. There are a lot of pictures on the internet that shows what Leopold II did to the Congolese people. I am censoring it because I'm not sure how YouTube will react to it. I'm not sure if I can show this on YouTube, but it's horrible, like seriously. This man was extremely brutal, sadistic, and mentally unstable. Number 6. Ivan the Terrible. You guys know this famous painting, Ivan the Terrible and his son Ivan? It's a powerful painting created by the Russian realist artist Ilya Repin. Anyways, Ivan the Terrible is exactly what his nickname is suggesting. He was terrible. He's done a lot of massacres, a lot of tortures. He was responsible for the massacre of Novgorod, where thousands of people were killed. He also ordered the execution of many of his political opponents. So yeah, Ivan the Terrible was the Tsar of Russia for quite some time, 37 years actually, from 1547 to 1584, and his reign was marked with terrible violence. Now as for the painting Ivan the Terrible and his son Ivan, it suggests that, Ivan the Terrible killed his son in a heated argument, so he threw a heavy object at him and accidentally killed him. However, this painting is not necessarily on a true story. It was just based on a legend that was popular back in the day that Ivan the Terrible accidentally killed his son, but it is not proven historically, and historians are arguing about this. Some say he did kill his son, some say that he didn't, some say that Ivan's guards killed his son during the argument to protect the Tsar. But how his son died is actually not historically 100% known. It's actually open for debate. Number 5. Genghis Khan. He was a Mongol emperor that conquered many territories. Some people see him as one of the most influential figures in history, but his legacy is also marked by significant violence and bloodshed. Genghis Khan's conquests led to the death of millions of people, literally. His armies employed brutal tactics and sometimes they, slaughtered entire populations. He also destructed many cities, like many cities were destroyed during these campaigns. And the destroyal of these civilizations actually led to cultural and economical devastation. And the cities he conquers, he actually used to force the resettlement of the people that were living in these conquered cities, which led to cultural displacement and suffering. It's also said that Genghis Khan conquests actually had a huge impact on the environment, like overgrazing and deforestation. Alright, let's talk about some facts here. Genghis Khan is the greatest conqueror in history. Not one of the greatest, no, he is the greatest. The Mongol Empire he founded is actually the largest contiguous empire in history. Contiguous empire refers to an empire whose territories are geographically connected. The British Empire is the largest empire in history, but it was not contiguous. As you can see, it was scattered all over the world. So this is the largest contiguous empire in history, and it was achieved by this man. So yeah, that's a huge achievement, obviously. So it kind of makes sense. To be that much of a successful conqueror, you need to be brutal and ruthless, but that does not make it right, and it does not make him a good person. Number 4. Mao Zedong. He was the chairman of the Communist Party in China from 1921 to 1976, and he was the leader of the People's Republic of China from 1949 until 1976. So basically since it was established until his death. Basically why he's so hated is because he transformed China into a communist society, and this actually resulted into widespread famine and basically an economic disaster. Millions of people died because of this decision of his. For example, he forcibly collectivized the farms, which led to a decline in the food production. So he's the founder of the Great Leap Forward, which is that campaign I'm talking about that turned China into a communist society, and it led to millions of people dying. But he also abused many human rights. During his time there was a lot of arbitrary imprisonment and also forced labor. There was also suppression of dissent. He was actively preventing and discouraging any expression of opposing his opinions. So his campaign that was launched in 1966 actually aimed to purge China of capitalists and traditional elements, and that actually led to a lot of violence. It led to chaos and destruction, and it led to the persecution of millions of people. He's not the father of communism. Karl Marx is the father of communism. Mao Zedong simply adapted and applied the communist principles into the specific context of China, which established the People's Republic of China, which caused a lot of trouble later. Number 3. Pol Pot. He was the leader of the Khmer Rouge, which is another communist party that ruled Cambodia from 1975 into 1979. So yeah, just like Mao Zedong was the leader of the People's Republic of China, Pol Pot was the leader of another communist party, which was the Khmer Rouge. It was in Cambodia. His regime is infamous for its brutal policies and for the Cambodian genocide. He forced millions of people from cities into rural work camps, where they were subjected to harsh labor, starvation, and disease. The Khmer Rouge regime is responsible for the death of an estimated from 1.5 to 3 million people. Many people were executed and others died of starvation. Some died because of disease, some died because of overwork. He had also some brutal policies like forced labor and forced marriages and the elimination of intellectual and cultural elites. The Khmer Rouge regime was also guilty of many human rights abuses like torture and rape and the use of child soldiers. Number 2. Joseph Stalin. He was the dictator of the Soviet Union from 1929 until his death 1953, and he is considered one of the most brutal and repressive rulers in history. Stalin's regime was responsible for the deaths of millions of his own citizens. This also included forced labor, famine, and political purges and forced labor camps. He established a totalitarian dictatorship where he had absolute control over the government. He also had control over the economy and the people's lives. Stalin initiated the Great Purge, which occurred in the 1930s, and this led to millions of people arrested, exiled, or executed, just on the suspicion of disloyalty or the opposition of his regime. In Ukraine, Stalin's agricultural policies led to the Holodomor, which is a man-made famine that resulted to the deaths of millions of people. Joseph Stalin also played a significant role in the World War II. Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler signed a non-aggression pact in 1939 known as the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. This pact allowed Germany to invade Poland without the Soviet Union's immediate interference. Just so we're clear, Joseph Stalin was not on Hitler's side in the World War. He just signed this pact as a strategic move to avoid war and secure a sphere of influence, which then Germany broke and invaded the Soviet Union, so yeah, it turned them into enemies. But yeah, Joseph Stalin is considered the second worst person in history due to the mass murders that he committed against his own people, and the Great Purge and the Holodomor. Only one person can top him in being the worst person to ever exist, and I think you already know who he is. Obviously Adolf Hitler. I mean, duh. The German dictator and the leader of the Nazi party. Obviously one of his most famous crimes is the Holocaust, where Hitler orchestrated the systematic genocide of millions of people. Primarily, the people were the Jews, but also it included Roma, LGBTQ+ individuals, and people with disabilities and political opponents. Also, Hitler's aggressive expansionist policies and the invasion of Poland actually was the reason for the outbreak of World War II, which was a global conflict that resulted to the deaths of tens of millions of people. The Holocaust also resulted into the death of 6 million Jews, but like I said, he wasn't targeting Jews alone, he was also targeting other people like Roma people and people with disabilities and LGBTQ+, and political opponents and prisoners of war and stuff like that. So the estimated total number of the victims who died because of the Holocaust is from 11 to 17 million people. Hitler and the Nazi regime also abused many human rights, like forced labor and torture and the suppression of civil liberties. And to be honest, the Holocaust alone is more than enough to have him considered the worst person to ever exist, but that was simply not enough for him. He also caused World War II. Anyways, that's all about the top 10 worst people to ever exist in history. Do you agree with my list? Just let me know in the comments below, and also if you do not agree with my list, tell me what your list would be, or tell me other horrible people that I did not mention in the list that deserve to be mentioned. There were a lot of horrible political leaders throughout history, especially in the medieval times. So yeah, obviously a lot of names will be mentioned in the comments from people saying that yeah, this name deserved a spot in the list or whatever. I understand that. Just let me know what your list is, who you think should have been in the list and stuff like that. This was my list though. I believe that those people I mentioned were the worst political leaders that ever existed, and they caused the harm to the largest portions of people out there. But yeah, let me know who you think deserved a spot in the list. And yeah, that's pretty much all for the video. I will see you guys later. Bye.